All right, less than 24 hours after I was breathless in the first emergency podcast introduction of pass interference history, I'm calm, and I brought on old friend, fellow Yukon Husky, Mike Mutnansky of the world famous Mudstack to say, you know what? Let's spend this whole freaking episode taking our time and talking about Stefon Diggs. You ready, pal?
I'm excited for Steph Diggs. I'm glad you've calmed down. People were worried. I got a lot of texts from other media friends. People were concerned, but you've rallied, and the Patriots have a talented wide receiver, which is reason for celebration here on Pat's Interference.
So, if I'm being completely honest, which we do on the show, but this is the way you preface stuff that's like, this is going to be a little odd. It's not. I'm lying to you all the time. I had taken a nap at 6:30. Okay, very late for a nap, but I had no worries about not being able to sleep later at night because I had a lot of work to do. It's going to be
6:30 p.m. nap.
p.m. Yeah. So I take a nap, wake up at 7:15. Phone is obviously blown up, despite being on Do Not Disturb. Doug gets through. This has happened. Alerts. Yada yada. Just rushing, full on rushing. Post a story that we had pre-written and talked about on the radio last week. Confirm with other people. Text some people in the league. Couple of players. What do you got? Blah 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 blah. Sit down here. It was still 2 hours later. I had published a story, got that information. I still couldn't collect myself. We finally got it through, and I'm glad we had a good episode. And shout out to our mutual guy Brian Barrett. But I've since written a column today. I have fully come around on Steph Diggs in a way that is not the beat reporter who has just been starved for a number one receiver or a good quarterback for a long time. And really, please make this work. I just think it's a good deal. And you and I were talking off air. Sometimes that's the boring take. I say that's fine. What say you?
I say, just to wrap this all up, tell me you have no kids without telling me you have no kids. A 6:30 p.m. nap on a weeknight means Callahan is still, for now, childless.
Yes.
Talent. It's talent. Let's start right. It's freaking talent. They have been desperate for a talented wide receiver for how many years? And you have him. He has. We'll get to all. There's question marks. There are reasons for pause, but overall, it is talent. What makes a quarterback better besides seasoning, offensive line, good coaching? Talent around him. Steph Diggs, wherever he's played, he's had talent, and they've lacked that sorely. So 3 years, this much guaranteed, this much total. It's talent. And if you watch this Patriots team, they have been empty of bereft of talent at that position for X amount of years. They have it now. If you're a media member looking to complain about this, you really got to stretch yourself. Like, you've really got to find some ways, because this is, for a fan, for media, for the team, it's a good deal. For your quarterback, it's a very good thing.
And if you are a media member complaining about this deal, the Venn diagram of people who complain about the Patriots' lack of spending and who don't like this deal is not a Venn diagram. It's a GD circle, okay? To which I said, I just don't want to hear from you right now. Yeah. That this is not a time for complaining. It is not a time for whining. This is the start of my column tomorrow. Who am I, someone who has clamored for years and years and years, to turn my nose up at the best receiver the Patriots have had in almost a decade? Who am I to look at this receiver and go, they gave him money, maybe a little bit more than I expected? Who cares? It's not my money. You have the cap. You have the cash. There is only upside here as far as I see it. And we'll get into, obviously, there's some downsides here. 3 years, we'll say it again, $69 nice million, $26 million guaranteed. Jordan Schultz reports today that apparently the Patriots have an out after year one. Still no final details out about the contract. But yeah, I'm with you. The talent, that's the biggest takeaway of this, just the infusion, if whenever he's healthy, and he'll be healthy. The biggest part of this whole signing is the jump in talent that they just got at their weakest spot in the roster.
Yeah, I mean, you forced your rookie quarterback last year to have to elevate the receivers. It should be the opposite way around, Callahan, right? It should be the receivers elevate the quarterback, and they didn't have anybody like that. Hunter Henry's a very nice tight end. He's not really elevating Drake Maye. Steph Diggs should do that. Steph Diggs should be one of the pieces that makes Drake Maye a better a quarterback in general. So talent, blue chip, whatever Lombardi called, like, that's, they needed it. They spent on it. We can hem and haw about how they got here, and the blue chip guys, they may have missed along the way, but they landed this guy. It's good for the team and great for the quarterback.
So I almost busted Brian Barrett's balls about this, and I realized that it's not his fault. It's really his boss, because that notion that Mike Lombardi, as Bill Simmons has often espoused, invented the blue chip idea to identify the best players in the team. Anyone in college recruiting goes, oh, hello, we've been doing this for decades. Not your fault. I didn't get it out yesterday. I need to say it now. But yes, blue chip talent. That's Stefon Diggs. The most significant part of this signing to me is what the talent does, and you kind of hinted at it, the ripple effects for Drake Maye, for the future receivers. And when you get really far out there, like the ripple is almost petering out and it's just smooth, still water, is what this potentially could do, underscore potentially, for the Patriots as a free agent destination. Because the biggest problem they had before Stefon Diggs said, yes, I will take your money, is that every big receiver they went after, Calvin Ridley, Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, said, no, I would not like your money. I'm not going to go there, whether it was via trade or in free agency. Stefon Diggs says yes. So when he comes here, he's a guy who's got a reputation for Pro Bowls. He makes Drake Maye look better and allows the other receivers to work one-on-one matchups that a year ago were a step higher, right? Like Demario Douglas or Kendrick Bourne are facing the number one corner, depending on what the defense does. That's not happening anymore. Those guys get to be number twos and threes and to flourish in a way, again, when he's healthy, which we don't know. Everyone knows he tore his ACL. That's impossible unless you have a player like him with the gravity to pull the defense away and alleviate the pressure. Like that will happen immediately once he steps on the field. But what happens after for Maye's development, and this is a potential free agent destination if they really want to contend again, is really how far this could go.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things about it. I guess I would say for me, it's the fact they spent the money, dude. Like I didn't think they would open up the checkbook for a wide receiver for years. Going back to Belichick, where I think he has always undervalued the talent at that position and not realized that the game has changed. It is not hand the ball off to Leroy Horde 25 times and win a game 10-7. It's not one like that anymore. You need electric playmakers. Those guys in free agency, when you miss in the draft and you screw up every second round receiver pick you've ever had, you have to spend money on those players. They spent the money. Elliott Wolf, Ryan, what's his name? Ryan Crowden? Cowden. Bob Kraft, Jonathan Kraft. They spent the money. That's the biggest thing. Forget about drawing guys in or making Maye's life better. All good. They actually spent the money. This might be a bad deal. This might blow up in their face, but didn't have to win the deal. They have to sign the guy to the best contract ever. The fact they spent the money at receiver, that to me is the biggest part of this deal.
Yeah. Anything else before I ask you what the most worrisome part about this is? Again, 3 years, $69 million, 26 guaranteed. Again, you keep hearing he's on track to report for week 1. Let's push that back. Let's make it week 5, 6, early October. Anything else we haven't hit on before we get to that part?
I am curious, like how, and this is way inside football for March, but like how they're going to use him, because he sort of transitioned from this outside receiver to a guy who's played a lot more slot recently, and maybe guys, the Texans receivers around him were also pretty good. Tank Dell is good. Nico Collins is good. But like I could see a scenario where they play him in the slot a lot and he becomes a guy that just carves up the middle of defenses. Like I'm excited for Josh McDaniels to have this piece to sort of move around and use, because he saw it year one in I was gonna say Oakland, LA, or Vegas with those receivers there. Like he was able to elevate Carr, the quarterback there, and use the receivers in a really innovative way. I'm excited to see how they use Steph Diggs, because I think he can be used in multiple ways at the receiver position and make Drake Maye's life easier. So I'm excited about Josh having this piece to build around the offense.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a good point. What people forget, and not because this is something that's so obvious, but I think in the McDaniels offense, and we'll see what iteration kind of comes next. It's different, as I highlighted in my initial pitch last episode, that I think we would get the Cam Newton version of this offense before, which is not to say balls going in the dirt, just a lot more play action, multiple tight ends. The receivers do move around a little bit more. Like Julian Edelman was at the Z receiver spot, strong side receiver, outside the numbers, more often than people remember. And sometimes you would motion into the slot and then go from there. Other times he would hang outside, especially when they had Danny Amendola. So this is a group that likes to, it's not quite disguise, but move pieces around to keep the defense on its toes. And certainly if you're going to see a shadow on the opposite side, which the Patriots very well might, with Stefon Diggs being so much better than all their other receivers, they do mix and match. But it is curious to see what kind of tricks Josh will have up his sleeves. Motions, stacks, bunches, hurry up, tempo, like all this different stuff is now unlocked because you have a player who, okay, when that guy moves, the defense has to react. That's not like, yeah, you got him. Like it's,
and I also think for Drake Maye, like he'll be able to trust Stefon Diggs. Like I probably has lost a step at 31 off the ACL, but he's going to be in the spot he's supposed to be, right? We heard that with Brady. Brady trusted receivers who were where they were supposed to be in the route. Like Steph Diggs will be in that position, and he'll be able to trust that and be able to spend more time in the pot. Like it's a very positive move for a team that has been hesitant to spend money at that position. So it's hard. I can't poke holes in it. I'm sure we'll try to here in a second, but on its face, it's a good move.
Okay, all right, let's do it now, because in the spirit of fairness, there is a world, a universe in which this goes poorly, and it's not just because of bad luck or injury. This is a guy who was traded from Minnesota to Buffalo, Buffalo to Houston. Houston said, "Nah, we're not going to re-sign you," and the ACL tear played a big role in that. Though all the reports are, "Oh, the Texans loved him and he was great," and you know what? I believe them because these are coming from good reporters. You should trust good reporters, but he is someone whose malcontent comes from not having the ball enough. This is not an offense that historically has funneled targets to certain players. This is very much an egalitarian type of offense. That's just what it is. So in addition to the ACL, that dynamic has me not worried, but I'm keeping an eye on it from a distance, especially if they don't see him as being 100% yet and he feels 90% is better than the receivers, because he'd be right. Those are the two things. Can he get to last year's form, which is better than you think, which we'll get to in a second? And then when he's close but not there, does he start to act like he's arrived? And that's something you don't know until the guy's in the building. That's how I would poke holes in this, or just, again, keep an eye on a couple things.
Yeah, that's from the individual standpoint with Diggs. I would take I'm a little concerned in the 24 hours after this that, like, the team might be content, like, that this is enough. And I would say, don't stop now. And like, if you can get Travis Hunter at 4, who we'll get to, still draft Travis Hunter. If you can still make trades around the draft for other wide receivers, you've got draft picks, you still have plenty of money to spend, still make those moves. Like, I hope they don't look at this like, hey, we're done at receiver. We're good. We got enough. I would still say draft and trade market. They should still be exploring everything, because I think there is still a talent drop-off from what Steph Diggs is and the rest of the roster. I'm sorry, Matt Collins and Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne. You can tweet away, like, we need to see it again from those guys. It's him and everybody else. I'm hopeful they don't look like, hey, this is it. We're done. We can move on from this position, because there's still work to be done on offense and getting players around Drake Maye.
When you went like that and washed your hands, for whatever reason, I got this image of a small parade going through Foxboro, like the Patriots finally signed a number 1 receiver parade, and I'm wondering how many people would show up. I think you would have probably a few hundred down there, and that ownership might be so detached from reality that they are patting themselves in the back for a move that everyone has been clamoring for a half decade. I would go out of curiosity, maybe for work, maybe for a column, but the Steph Diggs parade in Foxboro, maybe coming to a news station or newspaper near you. I think that's it. I mean, I think the obvious part with the ACL is a reason for concern. I text you front office executives. People are supposed to know better than me, and that's their big thing. Oh, it's the age and the ACL. Like, okay, if that's it, we all get it. To push back against that, though, because a torn ACL is not what it was when I was watching the league coming up. It's not what it was when you were following the league and doing radio. Julian Edelman in 2017 tore his ACL at age 32. Returned the following year, did have a 4-game suspension due to PEDs. Almost cleared 1,000 yards in a dozen games the following year and won Super Bowl MVP. The year after that, at 34, he had a 1,000-yard season. There are a lot of factors in there, namely Tom Brady was his quarterback. But I look at this and go, even if Steph Diggs comes back 12 months to the day, October 27th or whatever it was, like, there's still room and time in there for him to find a form at 31 going on 32 that you can count on him as your best receiver, even if he's not number 1 caliber just yet as he works his way back.
Yeah, and like, if we're ranking the two concerns, and you mentioned the 2 individual ones, the injury and, potentially being a malcontent and being an off the field issue, I am more worried about the second part than I am about the injury. The rehab process for ACLs has become pretty streamlined. Guys return pretty quickly, even in their early 30s. So I agree with you on that. If I'm ranking my concerns, it's he's bitching on social media about not getting the ball. Team starts slowly, like Vrabel's calling him out for being I'm much more concerned about that than I am the ACL. Like, if we're ranking the two, and I say I really, because of the medicine advance, I haven't really thought much about the ACL at all. They might be a little bit slower to start the year, and it might be a ramp up for him. But we've seen it too many times. It's like Tommy John with baseball. Guys come back in baseball, and they're better after Tommy John. He's not going to be better now, but I don't know. I'm more worried about the off the field, him as, like, can he be a leader, that part of it, locker room, than I am the injury.
And to keep myself accountable, yesterday I'm saying, look, like, if you're concerned about not being able to handle a number 1 receiver who wants the ball and is going to be demonstrable, like you don't really believe in your culture. So
I agree.
it doesn't mean you don't have a blow up on the sideline or there's some awkwardness or tension in the locker room. Like that's going to happen over a full NFL season. That's just the nature of the job in the workplace. I think you can stomach that. You can handle it. The other kind of context that we should consider is, those issues arose when the Bills are winning 4 straight division titles and he was there. Those issues arose when the Vikings made an NFC Championship game. Could they be exacerbated when he's been empowered and has all that money and you're losing and you're 5-7 or 4-6? I don't know. No one's rooting for it, but it's just stuff to keep in mind that we haven't seen yet and won't know, obviously, until he's here.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see what else they do at receiver with him, or does he view himself as like the alpha of this group? He'll like lead those guys. So it'll be a fun thing to watch him, and if he's ready to take over as like the leader of this group, because I think Drake Maye would probably like that. We'll see if he wants to do it. I don't know.
That man could hobble in with like blurry vision in one eye, and he would absolutely be the alpha in that receiver's room. Like he could fall and miss his chair, go out the wrong door, not have the right playbook. He is absolutely the alpha in that room. Let me ask you a question though, because, okay, 2 years pass. He might be here, he might not be. What's a successful Stefon Diggs experience if you're the Patriots signing him to this contract? Again, we still need the details, but it's $26 million guaranteed over 3 years, which really means this is probably a 2-year deal. Does he need a 1,000-yard season?
I would say no, but before I do that, do we know? Yeah, I know you said you're still working on the contract details of this. Is the 1 year out thing realistic? Because if you tell me that they have a really easy out after year one that just eats some money and move on, then that's really low risk. Like I would just say he's got to play. Like he needs to get out there and play and make Drake Maye's life easier. If you're going to tell me that, hey, it's tougher to get out of the deal, then I still go back to staying healthy over 2 years and being able to be a reliable number one, which to me is less about numbers and more about making big plays in big spots. Like I think if you watch around the league, there are certain, like Mahomes is up. I want to sort of put him aside, but the rest of these guys need a receiver. Like when the hardest thing to do is pass on third down when the other team knows you have to pass on third down. When you have Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne and these second and third tier guys, you're so much easier to stop. But when it's 3rd and 7 and they know you have to throw and you can make that play, those are back-breaking plays. That's what I want to see from Steph Diggs. Without the numbers and with the stats he's got to get to, 3rd and 7, have to have it play. Julian Edelman, go make a play. Wes Welker, go make a play. Like that's what Drake Maye has to have. The only guy who's been that guy on this roster for the last couple of years is Hunter Henry at tight end. They need that guy at receiver. And so what does he have to do? It goes back to playing games and being able to, when the other team knows you're going to pass the ball, still make the play, beat a guy one-on-one, because that's what they've lacked, is somebody at the receiver group that's going to beat your talented cornerback one-on-one. He's got to be able to do that over 2 years. Has to.
Well, I have a number of total yards. That's like my floor that I think he needs to get to, or at least be in the neighborhood of for this to be a success. So I'm curious what your floor is if we do this.
Over 2 years or 1 year? What's the year? What's the
length of the contract? Like again, I'm assuming a 3-year deal in most NFL contracts. Okay. You lop off a year. So this is a 2-year deal. If he plays 10 games, let's say conservatively next year, plus 14, he gets banged up, 24 games as a Patriot. If he gets to only 1,200 yards, that's 50 a game. Is that
1,200 yards in 3 years?
2 years. We're talking 2 years because you're lopping off the last year. But what you're saying is he just needs to make enough gotta have it moments, right? Like this is
that number seems. I'd be.
Okay.
We'd be we'd be crap. I don't know if we'd be crapping all over that number. We'd be crapping all over that number. If we get to 2 years and it's like 64 catches for 1,240, we'll be kicking the crap out of him.
Okay. Let me do I hear 1,500?
Closer. Like I see, I did a 3-year number in my mind, but if he only plays 10 games this year and considering next year, like 15 plus would be okay. I would sign for that. I'd sign for that.
Okay. 15 sold. My number was 1,600. And this was built in a range of whether he does play 10 games or maybe he plays 34. He goes 17 games and 17 games. Obviously you'd want it higher than 1,600, but to me, that's gotta be like the minimum here, which could also be a 600-yard season and obviously a 1,000-yard season when he gets to full health. Granted, he'd be 32 going on 33. It's still possible because the opportunity is going to be there. And I think also the way the offense is designed, like he'll have a chance to beat man coverage and make those plays that you're talking about in a way that he doesn't. But I want to keep that in mind because we can say it's a success now because they spent the money. But like what matters is, to go back to your point about the contract, like the success of owning a house to me is not like, oh, we built in an escape room and then we had to use it one time and we were safe. Boom, that's a success. Like if they have an out after year one, we got to drop the hatch and we got out of there. Like you don't want to have to go to an escape room. I don't want to have to use the out in year one of the contract. I want long-term success and enjoyment. And to me, this would be minimum 2 years. He's got to stay healthy. 1,600 yards is my floor. Pick the number of touchdowns, third downs, whatever big moments they have.
And Callahan's taking naps at 6:30 and talking escape rooms. This is a whole different podcast.
Very stressful life over here.
But does that number change? Okay, so you 1,600 over 2 years. Okay. Does that change if they end up pairing him with another elite top end guy? Like
no,
that doesn't change for you. Like if they, I don't want to end. If they draft Travis Hunter and say you're the wide receiver too, like you're on the, to me that number might come down a little bit if it ends up meaning somebody else emerges and they're almost like not 1 and 1A, but a 1 and a legit 2. Because I don't think they have a legit 2 on this roster right now. If they paired him with a legit number 2, then that number might come down a little bit. But 1,500 would be my number right now.
No, I look at that and say his opportunities get easier, right? Like because you're facing more number 2 corners. You got a quarterback who's going to have multiple options and probably be better himself with all that support that you're talking about, right? Like receivers lifting up the young quarterback. I want to say 1,600 is a range. If the dude, gets banged up a lot and still gets a 1,598 and has 12 touchdowns, whatever it is. The point is play over 2 full seasons. This is why you signed him to a long-term deal. He's content enough to be here. And the yardage at least has to be on pace for more than the Patriots have gotten from their top receivers. That to me is where I get in like the 1,600 range as a floor.
Yeah, and again, outside the numbers, like be a number 1 receiver, be able to beat their best cornerback, be able to force double teams occasionally, like third down, make plays. Like that stuff in the long run is going to mean more to me than at the end of it we look at the actual stat line. Like what did he act the role? Did he act the position number 1 receiver? That they haven't had that, and it should be fun to watch that with a young quarterback as talented as Drake Maye.
Yeah. All right. I talked about Drake Maye, man-to-man coverage, numbers this and that. And last episode said, Diggs got 3 catches and Christian Gonzalez and a touchdown. That doesn't impress you. I don't have much more. Today I have more. Are you ready, Mud?
I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do it.
So according to ESPN's receiver analytics, which break down in yards after catch, how often you get open, what's your catch rate, yada, yada, Stefon Diggs in 7+ games last year was the 3rd best receiver in football. Pretty good. Number 7 by their open score, okay, which accounts for your ability to separate versus man and zone. But the issue for the Patriots, as we know, is mostly against man-to-man. According to Sports Info Solutions, they are the only team to rank bottom 10 against man-to-man coverage by passer rating and completion percentage the last 2 seasons.
I believe
over that stretch, they saw the 3rd most snaps of man-to-man defense in the entire league. Translation, their receiving core stunk, and everyone knew it. When you have Stefon Diggs, who converted almost 90% of his catches against man-to-man last year, small sample, yada, yada, whatever, almost 90% for a first down, above average against man-to-man, according to PFF. That changes things. That does not let defenses come in and say, I'm going to go to bed early tonight. We have the game plan. It's going to play you one-on-one. This guy, when he returns, whatever form that is not only your best receiver, he's a guy who gets open in a box on 3rd down in the red area. You don't have to ask me. You can just go talk to Christian Gonzalez.
Okay. Am I a follow-up for Mr. Stats over here?
Yes.
You mentioned he was number 7 in open rate. Mm-hmm. Do you have the top 6? Can I compare him to the other 6 you have in front of you? Or am I putting you on the spot?
I will pull them up if you want to buy time for me.
I want to know that when you say number 7, like immediately, like, okay, it's top 10 receiver, but I'm curious who the other 6 are, because if they're just guys that I don't think are, in my personal opinion, aren't very good, that will hurt your stat. And we all do this, whether you're writing a column or writing a newsletter at mutstack.com. We use stats to our advantage and we twist them. Yes. And so I want to see if I can take your stat and shove it back in your face with some of these receivers.
So there are 3 receivers tied at the top. I don't think they're going to disappoint.
Okay.
AJ Brown.
Yep.
Malik Neighbors.
Yep.
Mike Evans.
Yep. Okay. We're 3 for 3. 3 for 3. Yep.
At 4, you have a tie. So I guess he's got the 7th highest score, but you've got people above him. Drake London, Josh
Good player.
Downs, and
Really?
Dontavian Wicks from Green Bay.
Okay. Surprised those guys were on there. All right.
So in the neighborhood, Zay Flowers, Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave's up there, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Ladd McConkey, Mark Andrews, but he's really the only outlier in here. So there you go.
We're all good receivers. Okay. Pretty. Besides, no, I guess Josh Downs is pretty good. That's good company to have. So you've backed up your stat. Congratulations.
Well, and to your point, though, I was using stats to look up Cooper Kupp versus man-to-man coverage because this has just been something I have been, aside from asking for a number one receiver, just beating the drum over and over again. You need guys who can just get open. That's half of the job. Get open, catch the ball. PFF had favorable numbers for Cooper Kupp against man-to-man coverage, and I watched the tape, but other people do too, and be like, I just don't see this. So yes, there's enough data out there that if you wanted to piece together a case nowadays, you could make a case for virtually anything. What I'm here to say is the traditional box score stats were pretty good for Steph Diggs. The deeper numbers were even better, and those were some of them.
Love it. Love it.
So Drake Maye, that's how I see it. Like when he has a gotta have it play, this is not I need to create or extend, or if Pop Douglas is not exactly where I want him, which happened a couple times last year in key situations, he can go to Steph Diggs, and I'm still confident, even after the ACL, he can muster most of that form, by ESPN's numbers, PFF, or sports info solutions. So I'd be curious how they're defended next season because I'd still think you're confident playing them in man-to-man. It's like you got to beat me before I jump out of this defense, right? Like I'm going to keep throwing heaters until you can prove you hit my fastball. But like if you don't have a good group of corners, I'm not playing with Stefon Diggs like that. I mean, the Patriots got roasted by him, giving up 6 to 7 catches per game, over 70 yards, almost a touchdown when they had Stephon Gilmore, Pro Bowler J.C. Jackson, and now more recently Christian Gonzalez. Like those are his career numbers against one of the best corner teams in the entire league. If I'm prepared for the Patriots, I don't want to do that.
It just gives them so many more options. They were really, again, it wasn't just Drake Maye. It's the years prior. You're playing with an arm tied behind your back offensively. And I'm simplistic. People want to talk about offensive line and defense. I want to talk receivers and what this changes everything for what they can do. You're limited so much. It's like those golf carts you drive around. They go to tournaments sometimes, and someone will know how to take the governor off, and all of a sudden the golf cart is flying versus everybody else. You go down a hill like 45 miles an hour. Not recommending it, but you can do it. This offense played with the governor because there was just so limited talent on the outside. This should change everything. It should raise the expectations for the quarterback and the offense, the win total, all of it. And again, I like the big shiny object, right? I'm a big dumb football fan. I like receiver passing game football. This improves all of that. So adding your numbers to it, your nerdy numbers into the talent of Steph Diggs, and you should be happy as a Patriots fan.
Very good. All right. It is time to hand out some grades. We will go into how we see the Patriots free agency as a whole and talk about how this is going to affect their draft plans. And does their standing in the AFC change just yet after this break?
Enough about free agency. Enough about the draft. No more mocks, no more rumors, no more whispers, no more mailbag. It is time to talk, not about football or anything like that. Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, because when I'm not on this podcast and I'm sitting at home and I'm watching the Celtics, or it could be a hockey game, or it could be a baseball game. Sox are just around the corner. I am playing Prize Picks, and I am winning. And I would like you, as someone who supports this podcast, to win a little bit too. Because right now at Prize Picks, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash and run your game all season long. When you build your lineup, you know the deal. 2 to 6 players, all right? Every single time you go to Prize Picks, online or on the app, you'll see a player, and they'll have a stat. And all you have to do with your lineup is pick the player, go more or less on that stat. It could be Jason Tatum 5 threes. If you think he'll hit him more than 5 threes, he's going to hit more. If you think Kristaps Porzingis will have less than 18 points, hit less. Boom. That's a lineup right there. So 2 to 6 player stat projections over at Prize Picks. Basketball, hockey, baseball around the corner. Of course, football will be back too. And when you sign up today, if you're a new customer, here's the best part. You get $50. 50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at Prize Picks. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus 50. You just have to play. So sign up today. Download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and you will get $50 instantly with the promo code CLNS after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right. I did not grade this deal. If I would, it'd be a B+ or above. And coincidentally, that's how I see this whole free agency class now, because timing is a funny thing. Everyone lamenting, oh, they spent on defense, nothing available on offense. Look, you came away with a back end of his prime, yes, injured receiver, but is still among the best 2025 in the league.
Yep.
You came away with the best defensive player available. You rebuilt your back seven. We know what they've done otherwise. We don't have to rattle off all the different names. This is a good job by them. The thing that prevented them from an A, obviously, is Ronnie Stanley or Chris Godwin. But it's amazing how much differently I think everyone looks at this draft class, because 2 weeks later, after they finished assembling it and then introducing them at that weird press conference, because they just had to announce their captain had been cut the same day for some strange reason. I think everyone likes it a lot better. And I think it's good to look back and be like, you know what? I'm glad I put that in pencil and erase it and put something new.
It's a B or a B plus. And if you're grading on a curve like what they've done recently, it's a B plus. If you want to say their biggest need might have been left tackle and they still have not addressed that, I'm totally fine with that. Which keeps it from being an A minus or a legit A. But to your point, they spent big money. When you spend big money like this, we'll get to it. It usually translates to wins the following year for your team. And they did it at need. And they did it. They were out of character. The Diggs one in particular is way out of character for this team. So B plus, solid B plus. It's tough to poke holes in what they did. Like again, if you want to go back and say some of the receivers that you mentioned specifically that they could have traded for that they just did not want to be a part of, that might impact the grade. But overall as a group, I'd say it's a B plus group. Like if my kids were playing Madden and they did this in the offseason, I'd say they did pretty good. So B plus.
You're a harsh Madden grader?
I do. I'll look at their grades. By the way, kids care way more about that than playing the game. Like my kids,
they give the grades out.
They simulate the entire season, the playoffs, just do free
God.
agency and draft. That's all they care about. And even worse, dad tangent time. They waste their time watching YouTubers do the exact same shit. Like that's what they're watching these guys do, is build out their drafts, and they come down saying they want to do the same thing. So yes, they care way more about that than actually playing the game. God forbid. Yeah, B plus. Sorry, that was a bad rant. I apologize.
So hand up, that is the way that I play 2K, because I just don't have the patience for 80 games or 60 or
You're
40.
GMs. So get a simulator game then. Get a simulation game we don't have to play.
You didn't play. What was it like? Stratomatic back in the day. That was actually. So this is pre my time.
Yeah, I did not play Stratomatic. I think the first, like we were. I still say I was one of the first fantasy football teams in New England. Like this guy ran a league. I wasn't playing Stratomatic. I was playing fantasy baseball, playing Tecmo Super Bowl, and I wanted to play the game. I didn't want to build teams. But that you and your kids these days.
Yeah, famously, fantasy baseball is played on a diamond and people pitching it. Oh no, you just play GM and add your roster and take guys off. Very good. Said as a fantasy baseball fan, year 19 of my renewed high school league came up this past weekend.
Wonderful.
But no more time for stories. All right, getting back on track. We both agree B is the absolute floor, I think, for this free agency. I again think they missed on the DK Metcalf trade. This is a nice way to pivot. Let's be clear. Steph Diggs was not plan A. He was not plan B. Might not have been plan C. Okay? Like, this is just what it was. But you have to be able to scramble. And they did. And so
Pivot. No, you can't say scramble. It's pivot. The word's pivot down there this year.
I'll say scramble. I know they'll say pivot because they were telling us since the combine, like, oh, we might have to go to plan B, C, and D. And guys didn't want to come here, which is why, again, like, yes, the spending money in receivers to me doesn't hit as much because I know for a fact they were ready to pony up $30 million a year for Ayuk, and Calvin Ridley was 22, and Metcalf at least somewhere in the neighborhood, and Chris Godwin reportedly $29 million. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's fine. We don't have to do the interest Kings game, but that was a Bill thing. He wanted to build middle-class receiving corps because he didn't, as you said, see them as valuable as they really were, because from a defensive standpoint, you guys just double him and he's out of the game. Well, if you have two good receivers, you can't double them both. Anyway, they finally do spend. They get the big name in here. This is good. The draft. 2 questions. Number one, does this categorically, fundamentally change how they should approach the number 4 pick? Number 2, if Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are off the board at that point, what are you doing?
It should not change what they're going to do. It should not. Elliot Wolf apparently told season ticket holders this past weekend they're taking the best player. They should take the best player. If they're worried about Will Anderson's little miniature dinosaur arms, don't take Will Anderson. Like that. Will Campbell. Best player available. Better Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter not being there, I have not let my brain consider. Like I am believing in all the rumors about 2 quarterbacks going in the top 2, and it should set up for things to be right there for you at 4. Which again, you want to nitpick for a second. They should not have won that game to end the year, and still should be under investigation. They should not have won that game. The Bills were trying to lose that game. You should not have been trying to win. Ownership should have stepped in and fired everyone at halftime or before the game, quite frankly. And this would not be an issue. If one of those guys is not there, I guess I'm trading back. I don't want to trade back. I want the best player at 4. I want that to be Carter or Hunter. And again, I'm stupid, big shiny object. I want one of those 2 guys. I would not be taking Campbell at 4. I don't want a running back, which I keep now. I'm reading today, Pro Football Focus. Steve, is it Palazzo? One a very tied-in guy saying that they're going to draft Gentry at 4. Hell no to a running back at 4. So
Ashton Gentry. Okay. Yeah.
Ashton Gentry, sorry.
So he's casually referred to his cousin Steve because Doug Hyde has some very distant connection to him. So just
really? I did not realize that. I like Steve's work, but I saw him mock a running back to the Patriots in year of our Lord 2025 at number 4. The answer is no. So if Carter or Hunter is not there, Abdul Carter is not there, I'm trading back, but you keep hearing there's no trade backs to have. So you're then cursing the team for winning that game in week 18 is what you do.
So you and I are in agreement again. I will say, just to put a bow on the Ashton Gentry conversation, hell no is my answer to that.
Thank you.
And it's nothing personal about him. I can tell you for a fact they do see him as a legitimate top 10 prospect, which is not groundbreaking news if you see Daniel Jeremiah, or Dane Brugler, Tom McShay, your most respected media analysts, ex-NFL folks. They all see him the same way. The Patriots do see Ashton Gentry as a top 10 prospect, but running back is even more dependent on an offensive line to help him do his job than the quarterback is. And given the state of the Patriots offensive line, even if they're better run blockers at center and right tackle now, you're not taking a running back. You don't need one. If you have a bad offensive line, you're not giving him a whole lot of room to run anyway. Forget about it. I agree, going back to the first question, they should not change their plans. It should be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at 4. Fingers crossed, 2 quarterbacks drop. This will be nice and easy. Blue chip player, another blue chip player that they can just slide in there. And I am on the record saying, I don't want to talk about Will Campbell's arms today. Apparently, they're 33 inches. They grew a half inch from the combine, which cannot measure anyone, by the way, because apparently all the offensive linemen measured in short. But I am prepared for Will Campbell to be the pick at 4. If it's not him, and I don't want to take the outlier gamble, Armand Membu, and even still Ted McMillan, who I've been completely ruled out yet. If I have to pick at 4 and not trade back, that's where I'm at. But I don't see this as a way that they should change it, because also the draft is for the long term. Stefon Diggs is the next 2 seasons, right? Like this is a different move than drafting someone at number 4. They should not take the same approach to both of these transactions.
Let me ask you this: the guys you talked to around the league. So in this in doomsday scenario, since they screwed up having the number 1 pick overall, they're stuck at 4. But in the scenario you just said that Carter or Hunter are both gone, that also means that either Sanders or Cam Ward is there. Mm-hmm. Is there enough of a market for one of those 2 guys where you'd still get a decent haul for somebody trading up for 4? Is that possibility still there? Are those quarterbacks good enough? Or do you think teams are already looking at next year's draft and saying, well, if we can't get one of those 2, we're not going to dump picks into trading up to 4 by any chance?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, you're looking at the quarterback needy teams and you have 3 of them ahead of you. So that takes them out of the running, right? So it becomes less of a seller's market than you would expect. You could still look at Vegas possibly, or the Jets, and whether they come up from 6 or 8. Modern trade value charts. That's like
you're not trading with the Jets, though. That's the issue. The Jets, you're not.
If you don't think Shador or Jackson Dart or whomever is franchise quarterback, I'll take your money, and then I'll beat the quarterback I don't like twice a year. I would happily do that. PR, ramifications be damned. But I don't know, because the way I see it is that Shador Sanders is not worth remotely a top 5 pick. And what I think doesn't matter, because I'm not in a war room. I'm not running those teams. I don't think they'd be able to auction it off for this kind of haul. I think it's more likely that they do not have a market for it, but I could be wrong. That's just the way that I see it.
That's depressing. And again, you can blame the organization and the former coach for winning in week 18, the worst win in the history of the Patriots organization.
Keep bringing this up on this podcast, and I was equally disappointed in real time, saying it everywhere I could. Lose the game. Yes. But I think the first call, if ownership does watch Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter come off the board. The first call is to Drake Maye to fire him again. Second call is to then pick whatever player and make whatever trade you're going to do. All right. I asked this before the last break, and I'm going to tease it again. Does Stefon Diggs, even though he's injured and he's 31, blah, 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 change the Patriots standing in the AFC from a team in the mix, pushing to be in the mix, to actually in the mix? We'll find out after this. Hey, sorry we stopped the podcast, but we only ever stop for a good reason. And right now, the Built card might be the best one yet. But right now, we are getting Built rewards back that help us pay rent down the road. Here's how it works. There's no cost to joining Built. And as a member, you earn valuable points on rent and your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, including the ones you haven't even heard of yet. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world where you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards, as we do, a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on your rent payments, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/SOS. That's joinbilt.com/SOS. Make sure to use our URL so they knew we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/SOS to start earning points on your rent payments today. All right, tell the folks. Do you see this as a 9-8 team now?
Yes.
Okay.
The calculus is yes, they are squarely in playoff contention. And there's a history to this. I've heard the comparison already to the Washington Commanders of a year ago, who were under the radar, young quarterback. Oh, have you already said? Well, there you go. So I'll let you
No,
hammer
this 2
that.
months ago, but keep going.
But so there's already that's already in play. But just Fox Sports did a great job with this a couple weeks ago, where they look back the last 10 years in free agency, and we're like, well, if you spend money, what does that mean? And 9 of the 10 teams spent the most money in free agency, all won at least 3 more games the next year. So by the way, Patriots are one of those teams. The Patriots under Belichick late in his career, they spent a bunch of money, won 3 more games, and had that late run. I think lost obviously late. But when you spend money, you guarantee yourself X amount of more wins. Add in the young quarterback, add in the huge upgraded head coach from Drake Maye to Mike Vrabel, add in the bottom of the division schedule that you get to play this year. Yes, they should be. I saw somewhere today on one of the websites, 7.5 their win total. It's juiced up to -145. Not something I would touch right now, but pre-draft, yes, I would say absolutely positively 9-10 win potential, playoff potential, fair expectation for this team.
I like it. I don't really have much to add. I've done this segment before. I'm going to reserve the right to make a decision after the draft to see where it's at.
Did Steph Diggs change it at all for you? Because that's different when you've done the segment before.
Yes. Yeah. No, it does. I wouldn't say it pushes them from like hanging around maybe early December to like firmly getting the last wild card spot. Again, for all the reasons we talked about, injury, age, et cetera, et cetera. But the ceiling was certainly raised. And I think if you wanted to make a case that this should be like an 8-win over under, and obviously puts the push in play, I could hear that, because again, this changes how you can run your whole offense. Like what I pitched a day ago about this is going to be the Cam Newton run heavy, 33% play action. Like forget about that, man. You got a weapon out there. So yeah, it changes it, but not in a like seismic way. I don't see them as put them in the wild card spot now. Would I be surprised if they got there? A little bit, but I would have said that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I think they're firmly in the wild card, and I'll be curious. I've not done the full deep dive on are they a playoff team or not, what the odds are there. But if at a big positive number, I could get behind that in the betting markets. I definitely could, and I think we're underrating the coaching thing a little bit and the entire revamp of the coaching staff, because not only was Drake Maye a neophyte being thrown into it, like remember how that coaching staff got thrown together too, Callahan. Like you wrote about it a lot in the Herald, like. You went to 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 guys before you found an offensive coordinator that wanted to run the offense. So like this is it's an adult laden group now. They have experience. Like expectation should be just on coaching staff, a couple of wins plus free agency plus Drake Maye year 2. Like, 9-10 wins. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's a good point. And it's something that gets lost because you talk about shiny new objects, whether it's Steph Diggs or Milton Williams. That matters. That matters the most. The talent level is your floor for this team, which is now to be established, should be in the mix, even if that's 7 and 10 ultimately. When you look at the most important positions on a football team, it's quarterback, head coach, offensive coordinator, and not that far behind, offensive line coach.
Yeah.
All of those are getting upgrades, not
Huge.
just from week 1 last year, but the end of the season in big, meaningful ways, baking in a year 2 leap from Drake Maye. Doesn't always happen. Dak Prescott regressed and then was fine the rest of his career. But the point is, even if they hadn't made all these big changes in free agency, those positions not only just raised to a competency level, but they should be all above average performers at the most important positions for this team. And maybe Doug Marrone, we'll see. But certainly with Rabel, McDaniels, and May, and I think it's a good point.
Totally agree.
All right, final thoughts. Steph Diggs, Patriots related. What do you got?
I'll go. I'm going to say it again. So in case their draft nicks are watching, do not take a running back at 4. Like please don't. Like I understand they want to run the football. They've talked to all these guys, these draft running backs. They've talked to all of them. Like Mike Vrabel wants to run the football and power game. You want to do that later in the draft on your own time. That's fine. You can't spend the 4th overall pick on a running back. Even if they end up taking Campbell there, I could stomach it more than a running back. I don't want to see it. And that would signal all these positives, spending money at receiver, making life better for Drake Maye. You already have Ramondre Stevenson. Antonio Gibson was actually pretty good last year. Like,
yes,
a very good receiver out of the backfield. You have him back for year 2. Like, I think he's a valuable piece. You want to draft the guy somewhere in the middle rounds, late rounds, all for it, please. No running back. There's been such a good offseason right now for this team. Coaches to players, don't take a running back at 4. Please. It's not 1991. Don't do it.
I'm with you. And this is as simple as Tom McShay put it the other day. Again, shout out to our guy, Brian Barrett, had him on his podcast, and he's done Simmons and other places. It's one of the best running back classes in recent history. Okay, that's not just because Genty's at the top. It's the depth. Dylan Sampson at Tennessee came in or is coming in for a pre-draft visit, reportedly, to Foxboro. Yep. It's a day 2 pick. Take him on day 2. Be happy with it. Like, that's right. I don't mind adding a running back in that range, and I don't think you have anything to worry about. Yeah, I'm excited for camp, man. I don't think Steph Diggs will be ready day 1 early on, but I hope late in training camp, the people who still come, because the crowd wanes and it thins out and there's not as much enthusiasm. And granted, it's a Wednesday, it's freaking hot. You watch a couple of preseason games, everyone wants the real football to come. When they do one-on-ones, if Steph Diggs is healthy, man, I'm telling you, get down to Foxboro if you can. Take the kids. Him versus Christian Gonzalez is going to be worth the price of the non-admission alone. Like that, it's going to be a great show if he's healthy and he can show up in practice, non-pads for those one-on-ones. It's going to change a lot about how they do business and hopefully translates on Sundays, but we'll see. We have saved the last 5 minutes for some Sox or Celtics talk because you have, as you always do, Friday coming up, the world-famous Mud Stack. Subscribe if you have not. I always put it like this. There are a few things pop into my email inbox that make me appreciably happier. Just sudden delight comes across my face when I see that come in Friday mornings. I can always bank on it. There's always betting in there. I expect to be Red Sox after the opener tomorrow. Celtics, I'm sure. Take this wherever you want to go. We'll do 5 minutes on it. And again, reminder, Callahan goes right to the sports media section because I write a lot about gossip and Boston media. If you like Boston media gossip, there's one place to get it. And that's mutstack.com. And I can tell you right now, there'll be some in there on Friday based on some DMs and stuff that were sent to me today. Now, you do this thing where it's like, I mean, you're the host. You should be telling me what you want to talk about. So you do this thing where it's like, I'm going to punt the last 5 minutes. I don't say sit here, do this, eat that. Like, I welcome you in. You can sit where you want. You can have what you want. But you know what? You did tell me before the show. We'll do whatever you want. And then I served it back to you. And you just watch my ball bounce by you. So I will pick it up. I'm gonna ignore that. I will just say this. I do think we're on the verge of a pretty good run here if you're a Boston sports fan. So like Jason Tatum's twisted ankle aside, they are by far the Celtics are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. I don't buy Cleveland. I don't buy anybody else. And so they may face a tall test in the finals, but it looks like a team going back to the NBA finals. Cross your fingers on Tatum. So a deep run by the Celtics, chance to go back to back in the NBA with this group that still potentially, if the new owner wants to spend money, could basically all be back next year. So you had the Celtics going on a championship run. The Red Sox are going to be good. The Red Sox, they didn't have a Patriots offseason, but
They added an ace. They put themselves in a position where not one, not two, but three separate top prospects could all impact this team this year. They went out and spent money finally and brought in Alex Bregman. It has been almost 1,900 days since the ownership has spoken to media. So that's annoying. But the other stuff is very, very good. And they caught a break with Garrett Cole going down. Like all of a sudden, the Yankees don't feel like this dominant division team. And so they feel like a playoff contender in the American League. And then you have Drake Maye and Steph Diggs. Like, I'm not saying like, boy, is this an overused phrase on social media? Like, we're so back. If you say that, you have nothing to say, is what I would suggest. But they might kind of be back. Like Boston sports the next 9 months, Celtics, NFL draft, Red Sox are contenders, Patriots are contenders. Like this should be pretty. If you're a fan, if you're a media member who lives off negativity, there might be an issue potentially, but I'm sure we'll find something to bitch. I'll find something to bitch about, that's for sure. But like this,
yeah, but you're not referring to yourself. Like, and to be clear,
no, but I trust me. It's a lot more fun to go after. It's more fun to write stuff like that sometimes, quite frankly. But I think if you're a fan, forget that. If you're a fan, the next 9 months look pretty good, don't they? Like all of a sudden, like you're as a Boston sports fan, there's a lot of things to look forward to where your team could be in contention to get to playoff games and win the most important games of your season. Those are playoff games. In the Celtics scenario, championship games. Like that's there's a pretty good run set up here for the Patriots, for the Boston teams, is the way I look at it.
I love the optimism. It is beaming off your head, my head, my glasses here, just shining through. Socks, spring, weather's warmer. Because of course, how downtrodden have we been that the Celtics title was less than a year ago, that we need to bounce back so quickly. And
ridiculous.
Look, I make fun, but I think you're onto something, that there's momentum building for either the Celtics maybe to a dynastic run, and they've got financials to figure out. And we're not going to talk about that here, but the Patriots certainly, as we just detailed, Red Sox certainly, is I'm more excited for this season than any in maybe 5 to 6 years.
Are you buying into this team as somebody used to walk the games and get a cold beer and keep score, like you're in Goodwill Hunting? Like,
okay, well, I am not keeping score. I feel like I would need to have like a cardigan on or something like that, and my glasses down to about the bridge of my nose. Just if I was still doing that here in 2025, just do it on your phone, or don't do it at all. Just have the beer. That said, yeah, the 4-year-old who was introduced to Fenway Park in the Red Sox in a night game where they beat the Yankees 3-2 in April 1995, like that kid's going to live in here forever, which means I will be going to that park so long as I can and spending money, even when the team is not. Though when you mention the off seasons, kind of hit me. Milton Williams, Garrett Crochet, young, upcoming stars, both on relative pitch counts or actual pitch counts with their former teams. One traded, obviously, just one signed. Alex Bregman could be your Stefon Diggs, player formerly hated, who would beat you in the playoffs. You couldn't really do anything with him. And then you fill in the moves around there, Chapman, Carlton Davis. Like I think it might be closer than you're selling about Patriots offseason versus Red Sox.
No, I mean,
dismissal.
If you want to continue your analogy, left tackle an issue for the team. I think closers are still an issue for the Red Sox and the bullpen. So there's still that one question. Oh, fine, it's closer than I expected. You're right.
I don't think that helps your argument. I think the closer could be Chapman.
I know.
Justin Slayton. We have Federian Lowe still hanging around here by not even a thread. That thread is snapped long ago. Like it's just a black hole. Which again, I think Will Campbell at this point, good strong reporting continues to come from MassLive. They love him. They love him. They love him. They don't care about the arm length. Again, we're not talking about it today, even though it dominated Twitter. It cannot affect my professional life. The difference between that man's fingertips and his wingspan is just. It has too much weight on them. I don't want to do it, though we just did. All right, very good. Any bets, by the way? Because I might be texting you tomorrow as I come down with something about 3:58 p.m. and firing up Nest 360 on my laptop.
I took the over on the Red Sox to have a little. It wasn't for a huge amount of money, but I think when it was 86.5. I'd have to think about it. I took it over on their win total where available. I missed it by a couple of games but you got it before Bregman. You got it at a much better number. But I think the division being a little bit down potentially, and I think the offense will be very, very good. I took it as a very positive sign. God forbid we talk spring training for a second. Like in the last spring training game of the year, Jaron Duran is stealing bases like that. That to me is like in Mexico against an exhibition team like that. He's feeling his oats. I think he's going to have another good year, top of the order. I think Devers will settle in as the DH. I think he's going to be a great number 2 hitter for them. And the lineup looks good. The young kids, that part of it, I think that's going to be an awesome thing to watch. Campbell making the team, but I mean, Mayer, the people I talk to that have been around Marcelo Mayer down there are raving about this kid. And Roman Anthony looks like he could play linebacker for the Patriots. So I think they're going to be very good. I don't have a lot of I'm not a big fan of their ownership group, but I still think the team on the field will be worth tuning into on almost a nightly basis. And Crochet becomes a guy like if you're a Red Sox fan who's been waiting for that ace top of the order where every 5 days you get to watch an electric pitcher, that's what you're getting. He's not going to throw 240 innings. But he is electric. Like he can, every time he takes the ball, he can strike out 11 guys. And they haven't had that type of excitement there at the top of the rotation in a while. So I think you should be excited about the Red Sox. And I think for sure, you should have to call. Why don't you pitch your editors on a story where you go to like a local bar and watch the game with fans and see if they're as excited as you are? That's the story in there. That's a story I would read in the Herald on Friday after I'm reading mutstack.com. I read that first. But then I go read like Callahan goes to like a local pub and samples their IPAs and he talks baseball and gets paid to do it.
I was going to take another inappropriately late nap, but now I'm just ready to run through a wall for the Red Sox and my new editor at mutstack.com pitching ideas. Callahan goes to the pub. This is not an exclusive, folks. This is like a Thursday. But I like it. We'll think
Callahan at the pub. I saying
like Homer at the bat, the Callahan at the pub.
Writing gets worse as the game goes on.
Yeah. Did someone over my shoulder. Look, there are at least 5 YouTube commenters who are just screaming about the lack of football talk over the last 5 to 10 minutes, to which I would say, I'm tempted to go on because this is not your podcast. And we just did 45 minutes of solid football talk. Yeah. But look, if you got time on Fridays, and I know you do, it's a Friday. Okay. You might be listening to this podcast on Friday. Subscribe to mutstack.com. You get all the sports media gossip, Red Sox, Belichick photos whenever they pop up. Let me tell you, some Patriots.
Oh, please, Bill. If Jordan's watching, Jordan, another one this week. It gives me so much joy to see the Belichicks at a beach somewhere doing some yoga. I mean, this won't be a distraction at all at North Carolina. No. But it's gonna be all football for Bill and his GM Mike Lombardi, the football GM down there at North Carolina. It's be all
Mr.
football.
Blue Chip, Mr. Carolina Blue Chip.
I think, by the way, I wrote about this last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lombardi whispered it out there. They're going to do like a full season documentary on this team. We're going to get a full season. Bill reinvigorates North Carolina football, like the whole thing. I'm going to say I'm going to hate it. I'm going to watch every second. We're not getting Hard Knocks. We're getting a full behind the scenes 24/7. I don't know what form it'll be in, but we're getting that this year with Bill, which will be fun.
Does Jordan Hudson get an EP credit at the end?
Yep. Yeah, I would say so. She appears in Dunkin' Donuts commercials. I would say yes, she will be. She'll be a part of that for sure. Yes.
All right, there goes the other 6 YouTube commenter because some folks get very upset when we talk about Belichick and we're just honest about it. But look, I think the word fascinated is perfectly appropriate. I think describes
me too.
Our attitude towards us. All right, he is Mike Mutnansky. Again, subscribe, read every Friday right in your inbox. It's free. Themutstack.com. Thank you, pal, for joining. This is a blast as always. And I don't know, maybe you can come to the pub with me and we'll drink some beers and we'll do some writing. You with your staff.
I wish I could. On Thursday. I should say this on Thursday. If you're New Hampshire, I'll be at the Brook Casino in Seabrook with the great Pedro Martinez for a free event. Myself and Pedro. It's not me. It's just Pedro's there. He speaks to the fans right after the Red Sox game. Be about an hour. Do a little Q&A. The Brook has done this a bunch of times now, where they brought in great athletes: Ray Bork, Robert Parrish, Teddy Bruschi. Ty Law, who was very good, and now Pedro Martinez. So you want to celebrate Red Sox opening day if you listen for Thursday night. I don't know when Callahan's going to publish it, so if I'm missing this, you can edit if you want, Andrew. But Thursday, the Brook in Seabrook, Pedro Martinez, come say hello.
I was going to rag on you and say, what happened to Pedro? Does he need money? Like, can I help him out? Like,
how dare New Hampshire. They roll out the red carpet. It'll be. They've gone out of their way to create these awesome events for people, like these Boston Sports Legend events, and I am somehow lucky to be a part of them. So a very small part. Pedro's the star. Looking forward to Red Sox opening day. Hopefully they'll win and get a win towards their win total on Thursday.
My man, that sounds great. I am genuinely happy for you. I would love to hang out with Pedro. afterwards, send him to the pub. I will still be there. But he is
I
Mike
will send him.
Mutnansky. Thank you as always, pal. You know I'll hit you up sooner rather than later. All right.
If they draft a running back, do not reach out at number 4. That's all I'll say.
You're going to be my first call. Then the other call to Drake Maye to again fire him once more.
See you, man.